vanished. Just like download the whole thing. There it was. All he had to do was write it down. So inspiration is coming, love is coming, joy is coming. All these things are coming from the spiritual realm because that's their natural source. And in the material world, what do we have? A bunch of animals competing for sense gratification. You know, so we have to get beyond that before we get to this stage. We have to be a human being in the full sense of the term, or someone who has controlled their senses and cooperates with other living beings to attain desirable ends. That's what civilization's all about, isn't it? So we have to be really civilized. We have to be really conscious of who we are, even as on the human level, before we reach this point. This teaching is not for, you know, two-legged animals. This is for real human beings in the full sense of the term. You know, so that's what you're doing here today. You're all very nicely qualified, very advanced human beings who have some idea of spiritual life, some aspiration for higher consciousness, higher existence, more possibilities, more freedom, isn't it? I think we all share these values. And this is a technology which has come down to us from a long, 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 long time. I mean, people have been chanting this mantra for a long time. It's a very powerful mantra. It's considered one of the 3 most powerful mantras in existence. And of those 3, it's the only one that we can share publicly. The other ones are initiatory mysteries, because they require certain conditions. How can I explain? It's just like to fly an airplane, you have to have a license. Not everybody can fly an airplane. You have to be checked out. You know, you need to qualify yourself in a certain way. Why? Because an airplane is dangerous. You know, if you mess up, you can really cause a lot of problems. So we have a process for qualifying people for flying airplanes. Well, similarly, there are some mantras that are so powerful that they require similar. It's not that we want to keep them secret. Actually, we'd like to give it to everybody, but we don't want them to mess up their spiritual life by misusing them. You know, power can be misused, and if it is, it's extremely dangerous. So we don't want these mantras to be misused. But this is a mantra that basically can't be misused. It's like a bike with training wheels. You can't fall off. You'd have to try really hard. So we give this mantra publicly, and it's just as good as the mantras that are also confidential. But its specific purpose is to benefit the population in general. King Vasudeva is the king. He's Krishna's father in his appearance on earth 5,000 years ago. And he was a great king of the Vishnu dynasty. So Vasudeva, form of Krishna, is also a great king. And his mood in that form, or in that pastime, is that he wants to benefit the citizens. See, we have this mood. We feel that we've already received the greatest benefit. We already have everything, you know, the maximal benefits that we can get from human life. So at this point, all we have to do is share that. All we want to do is give. All we want to do is help others. We don't want anything selfish, because we already have like the major benefit that you can get in human life. So Krishna's mood is also like that, but bigger. So his mood is, as a great king, is that he wants to help the people conquer all material miseries and problems of life and be situated in the highest stage of consciousness so that they have no suffering, no fear, no feeling of loss, even at the time of death. You know, if you really have things together, even death is not a problem, because, hey, I'm just changing the body. You know, it's not a big problem, not a big deal. It's part of the natural process of life, you know. If you have a cut and the scab is there and then the scab falls off one day, you don't feel bad about that. So the material body is like an unnatural growth on the soul. You know, it's like a scab. We had some injury. We fell down from the spiritual world. And we got injured. And now we have this unnatural, you know, thing growing. So when this falls off, if we're in spiritual consciousness, that means it's our liberation. We can go back to the spiritual world. We don't have to come back to this world anymore. Or if we want to take another birth, well, I guess we can do that, but I don't know why we want to. So now I'm going to open up the floor to questions, both from the people here and from the people online. So I'm going to be watching the chat box. And please ask any questions you like, but it would be nice if we could keep it within the same context, because then the next section we're going to be talking about 2012.
I have a question.
Yes.
You were talking about chanting as close to 24/7 as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Does that necessarily have to be out loud, or can you kind of do it in your mind while you're doing your daily business, like going to work and other things like that?
Good question. She's asking if she can chant silently while doing other activities, or if it has to be out loud. Well, we get the maximum benefit from chanting out loud. The idea is we want to engage as many senses as possible in the chanting process. By doing that, we create more impressions. It's just, remember, the idea of the whole thing is to create as many impressions of spiritual quality as we can to overcome the material impressions. So if we're chanting and hearing and counting beads, that will help us to do that. Like the best way to chant is to sit in, you know, like a yogic posture with the legs crossed, sit up straight, breathe nicely in your yogic breathing with the diaphragm, use the beads to count the mantras, and chant a regulated amount every day. Best thing is first thing in the morning. You first get up in the morning, wash your face, wake up a little bit, maybe have a cup of tea, sit down and chant your mantra. And that way the whole day is going to go smoother. You know, it's got to, because we're being connected with our original source, our original nature. But of course, we all have to do other things and work for a living and do stuff like that. So yeah, at those times it's more appropriate to chant silently. I don't know, the kind of work that I used to do, it was very hard to chant because it was knowledge work. I was a technical writer, and so I had to use my intelligence to do my work. And that interfered with the chanting. It used to really bother me. So I would just, you know, get a set of headphones, like these, you know, little headphones, Walkman headphones that everybody has today, you know, and just play the file on my computer or something like that. We have hours and hours and hours of transcendental sound vibration on our website that you can download. Beautiful musical arrangements in the traditional style and also in the modern style and stuff like that. And we can, you know, supply your transcendental sound vibration needs for work or for driving in the car. It's not good to chant while you're driving in a car. It's better to listen. You know, you can be like, oh yeah, Krishna.
Here's the traffic for us.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that birth is a fall from the spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
So why do we as humans feel the need to recreate and have babies?
His question is, we're characterizing birth as a fall from the spiritual world, so why do we feel the need to create children, to create families, right? Well, that's nature. Nature insists on the preservation of the species. So the laws of nature are designed to reward us for reproducing.
So it's more of a material need than a spiritual need?
Well, no, there's also a process where you can have spiritual children. My spiritual master was describing it, but it doesn't involve sex life. You can create spiritual children independently. He was describing, it's like you lie down and a lotus flower grows from your navel, and then the new living being appears in that. Pretty cool. But no, in the material world, we have to propagate the species. That's part of the game here. So, you know, the sex life, family life, all those things are quite natural. Yeah. They're instinctive needs. They're part of the animal. You know, we have like an animal part, which is the body, and then we have the spiritual part, which is the human part. I think you were first. Yeah.
Just two things real quick. First, I kind of missed what you said about the lotus from the navel. Does that have anything to do with the chakras, or
Not
this is
really.
where that came from?
No, this is in the spiritual world.
Okay.
In the spiritual world, people can reproduce without sex. That was the point.
Oh, okay.
They don't need the combination of the two sexes.
All right.
Yeah, but they can still have children, because having children and having that affectionate relationship is a very natural thing.
Right. With the mantras, is there any mudras that correlate with it?
Not with this mantra.
Okay.
It's not necessary. Mudras are a